views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and the Bronx Borough Board will take place on Thursday, August 25th, 2016 at 9:15 a.m. at 198 East 161st Street, 3rd floor, DA Litigation Training Room. We have two key items on the agenda today. The first one is on hurricane readiness, and we have a presentation by the American Red Cross. And the second one is the Zika virus update. We have a presentation by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So without any further ado, I'd like to call Alexander Lutz, the Senior Regional Director for Community Relations, and Anastasia Hanna from the Bronx Disaster Program Manager, and Desiree Ramos-Reyna, Chief External Affairs Officer from the American Red Cross. Good morning, and thank you for being here. I don't know what happened to your presentation.
Okay. Well, I have a handout, and I know there were handouts.
It was on up until this time.
We could try and wing this as best we can. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Lutz. I am the Senior Regional Director for Community Relations at the Greater New York Chapter of the American Red Cross. Desiree couldn't join us this morning, nor our Bronx Disaster Program Manager, Anastasia. Anastasia actually deployed a few days ago to Louisiana to help with the operations that are ongoing down there with the flooding. But we do have her volunteer partner, Kim Maria Asoro, who is here. And she works with Anastasia when there are emergencies in the Bronx. And I'll explain a little bit more about, Anastasia's role as we go through the presentation. Excuse me. Before I get into the hurricane prep, I did want to just remind everyone, obviously, everyone at the Red Cross in New York, our thoughts and prayers with everyone in central Italy after yesterday's earthquake, and to kind of give you an update on what the American Red Cross is doing in conjunction with the Italian Red Cross, obviously with the large Italian population in the Bronx. We have been in constant conversations with the Italian Red Cross, which fortunately is one of the strongest Red Cross societies in the world. A lot of the needs that you may have in other countries, like recently at the Ecuador earthquake, that chapter is a very small chapter and is not as well able to take care of the residents as the Italian Red Cross is. So right now, there has been no official appeal from the Italian Red Cross for assistance. And the way it works in the international societies is that when there is a disaster in a foreign country, in order for any of the Red Cross societies around the world to provide assistance, that affected society needs to make an official request saying, yes, we need outside help. So Italy, we anticipate, will be making that request. They're just assessing what needs they will have that they will ask the international community to help with. People can go online directly to the Italian Red Cross website and make monetary donations. And as always, we stress that donated goods of clothing and food are not something that the Red Cross collects and really are not needed for the residents in Italy, nor in even Louisiana. It is very hard for organizations to go through those materials, to sort through them, to transport them. It is easier through financial donations because then they can use the money to get exactly what the individuals need. And a lot of times, everyone is doing things out of the goodness of their heart, which is fantastic, but it isn't necessarily what we need. I can tell you that in Louisiana, and we're pretty much familiar with where Louisiana is located, they've been getting shipments of winter coats. And they really don't need that in Louisiana. So that's to just kind of give you an example. But as we get more information about what we will be doing with the Italian Red Cross, we'll be pushing that information out to everybody so you have awareness of it. So there was a handout out on the table. I'm going to go through what's on my screen here, and hopefully this will work. Okay. So What I'm here to talk about today is hurricane preparedness. And not so much the preparedness of what should you be doing for a hurricane, because we kind of talk about that a lot and we do have programs that provide that information. But what I'm here to talk to you today about is the state of readiness of our chapter to respond should a coastal storm hit New York City. We are approaching, if you can believe it or not, the 4-year anniversary of Sandy on October 29th of this year. And just recently we have had Tropical Storm Fiona, which thankfully fizzled out in the Atlantic. It seems that Gaston is pulling out to Atlantic. There seems to be a Disney theme to the names this year. But Gaston is kind of pulling away, and now there is another tropical disturbance that is formed in the Atlantic, and we do not know yet where that storm will head. So we are in the midst of hurricane season. What I'm going to be talking about today, again, is the role of the American Red Cross in disaster response, the materials and equipment that we already have in place should a coastal storm or a hurricane occur. I'm going to talk a little bit about the timeline of how the Red Cross will prepare should a storm come, the recovery operations that we will undertake after the storm is gone, and then more importantly, I think for today, is a conversation about how we can all work together now before something happens, how we'll work together when something happens, should it happen. Hopefully it won't. And then after, in the recovery of our residents. So let me start by talking a little bit about the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross in Greater New York actually is all 5 boroughs of New York City. We are also all of Long Island. And we also have the lower Hudson Valley counties of Orange, Sullivan, Rockland, Putnam, Westchester, and Greenwich, Connecticut. We have 13 million people who are currently under our watch as the American Red Cross chapter. We operate the busiest disaster response program in the country. What you might not be aware of, a lot of people when they hear of the American Red Cross, they think of the 3 big things, which is the large-scale disasters that you see on TV like Louisiana, like Sandy. We draw your blood, we're vampires, and we also train you in CPR. And we do all of that, but we also respond to local emergencies, some which most likely never make the news, like house fires, power outages, and floods. And we do that 6 to 9 times every day. And those are through volunteers. We currently have about 84 paid employees, such as myself, but we have 6,500 trained volunteers like Kim who go out and do the responses when a disaster occurs. I'll talk a little bit more about the services that we provide, but one of the handouts that was out there, you may have seen, was a breakdown by community board. I don't know if you saw that. It had a blue line at the top. If I can pull it out here. Kind of looked like that if you saw it out there. What I've provided you with, the American Red Cross runs on the same fiscal year as New York City. So what I've provided you with is FY16's responses for the Bronx, broken down by community board. So in that far right corner, you'll see the number of responses we had by community board, and that middle column of registered clients is the number of residents that we assisted as a result of those local fires. The assistance that we're providing may include housing for up to 2 to 3 days in hotels, financial assistance to replace belongings they may have lost or don't have access to, referrals to other agencies and organizations for long-term housing, such as New York City Housing Preservation and Development, referrals to other organizations that may be offering assistance. We have trained psychologists and ministers and every form of religion that you have, so we can provide spiritual and mental health assistance. And we also provide other services as needed as we assess each client's needs. Most of those services are provided through donations by the public to the American Red Cross, and all those services are free to the clients. Historically, Brooklyn is our busiest response area if you're looking to see where they are. Bronx is between 700 and 800 responses a year for us. Queens is second, the Bronx is third. Obviously then Manhattan, and then Staten Island, where I actually live. But disasters can happen anywhere. And one of the things that we try to stress when we talk about hurricane preparedness is while most of the flooding will occur along the coast, although during Sandy we did have flooding in City Island as well as in the BronxNet section and other areas of the Bronx, many of us were what we call secondary victims of Sandy in that we lost power. So everyone can be affected by a hurricane. It's not just the direct impact of the storm. The next slide that you're seeing on slide 4 is Hurricanes 101. We are in hurricane season. It began on June 1st and it runs through November 30th. For our section of the Northeast, we are now in what we call the red zone. Between late August and September is when we are most likely to see storms attempt to make their way up the coast, as we're seeing with the tropical storms that are forming. If a storm comes into this area, the city will issue a hurricane watch. And I just want to talk a little bit about the distance between what a watch and a warning is. A watch is issued when a hurricane or tropical storm winds are possible within the next 48 hours. And that's when people should start to get ready, start to bring things in, make sure you've got all the supplies that you need, know where your shelter is in case an evacuation order is given. A hurricane warning is issued when hurricane or tropical storm winds are expected to arrive within the next 36 hours. So it's critical that you understand that difference, and we do have programs that talk a little bit more about it, which again I'll get into in a moment. The Red Cross is constantly in what we call a disaster cycle. That means that we are either preparing, responding, or recovering from any type of a disaster. Right now, we are in our preparedness phase. We don't really have anything going on right now in the city. We do have the 6 to 9 disasters, but we're prepared for that. We know that that is most likely going to happen. So as part of our preparedness phase of this cycle, what exactly are we doing? We are providing emergency preparedness programs to and materials to the public. We are also conducting drills and exercises to make sure that we are ready when something happens. And we are constantly developing our volunteer workforce, recruiting new volunteers. We are opening up clubs in high schools and universities to get people engaged at a young age with the American Red Cross. Over 90% of our workforce that you will see in any kind of a disaster, again, are volunteers, not paid staff. If something happens like a hurricane, we will shift immediately into our response phase, and that is providing immediate humanitarian assistance to those directly impacted. We'll also be coordinating with all of the other city, state, and federal agencies and organizations, including emergency management, FEMA, the borough president, all of the elected officials, and all of you as community board reps, which will be my job as the director of community relations. It's my job to make sure that you understand what the American Red Cross is doing. It's also important that I have your contact information so that I can push out information to you that you may want to pass on to people. And when the disaster is actually on us, we're going to need to be talking, because I'm going to need you to be my eyes and ears in your areas about what are the needs of your districts. What is happening that I can better direct services to get there as quickly as possible. The third and final part of our phase is recovery. Now, recovery may also begin while we're still in our response mode, and we're on slide 5 if you're trying to follow along. There's a circle of arrows. And this is assisting those that have been affected by the disaster who have long-term needs. They may have lost their homes like many did during Sandy. They may need to rebuild their homes. They may need those type of long-term services that are going to go on weeks, months, and possibly years beyond the initial storm. I'll give you an example. There are still people who were affected by Hurricane Katrina who have not returned to their homes. They are still living in trailers because of the needs that they may have, the socioeconomic conditions, but not everyone for Katrina has returned to their original home where they had prior to the storm. And Katrina was over 10 years ago. Our preparedness programs that we talked about, I keep mentioning the screen. On slide 6, we talk about the 2 preparedness programs that we currently offer. These are free programs to the public. We can hold them with community boards, elected officials, community organizations, faith-based groups. The first is called the Citizen Preparedness Corps program, or CPC as we call it. This is for adults to learn what they should be doing before disaster occurs. How can they get their families ready? How can they be ready? It's a 45-minute to an hour-long presentation that we do in conjunction with Governor Cuomo and New York State. Last year we trained over 13,000 people in this program. And again, it provides them with the information they need to know to be ready before something happens, what to do when something happens, and things and steps that they should do afterwards that can speed up their recovery. If you'd like to set up that program with me, you can see me after the meeting, or you can go to our website or call me. I'll have my business cards, and we can set those up. The second program is the Pillowcase Project, and this is for children. This is for children 8 to 11 years old, and it teaches them about home fire preparedness, which is very important, and we have the hurricane preparedness section in this program. This program is designed to give children information about disasters and emergencies that could affect them. If you were to be offered the Pillowcase Project in California, you'd be learning about earthquakes. If you were being given this presentation in Hawaii, you'd not only be learning about tsunamis, but you might also be learning about volcanic eruptions. It's tailored to the geographic area and what large-scale disaster they are most likely to incur. For us, it's a hurricane. It's, again, a 30 to 45-minute presentation. It's sponsored by Disney. At the end of the presentation, every child gets a workbook to go home and work with their parents, and they get a pillowcase. Now, the pillowcase is not to sleep on. It's intended for them to go home and use it to make their own go bag. It's got the Disney characters on it. We have found through studies that the age group of 8 to 11-year-olds is the age group that children are more likely to go home and guilt mom and dad into saying, we should do this. This is, again, a free presentation. We offered it for the first year, last fiscal year. Our goal was 3,000 children. We actually reached 6,000 children. And a lot of that was due to the superintendent, or who may have the title wrong, the head of the public school systems for the Bronx, who actually pushed out the pillowcase to all of the schools. We ended up doing over a dozen elementary schools in the Bronx alone. We reached almost 800 children in the Bronx alone through this program. Everyone got a pillowcase. Everyone got a workbook, everyone got a marker to decorate it. We have launched the program again, and we are looking to do that. This is in critical preparedness time for us, and this is a program that is critical to that. At the same time, during preparedness, we're talking about collaboration, which is what we're doing here. We're telling you what the American Red Cross will do, and we're working to build up those relationships so that we have it now. As I like to say, in the middle of a disaster is not the first time that I should be exchanging business cards with anybody. So the idea is to build up our contact bases now. So at the end of the presentation, I'll talk about it now. I'm looking to get everybody's information in this room. I'm looking to get information for everybody with your community board or your elected official's office, and any community faith-based organizations in your areas that we can add to our database, our email distribution, because we will be blasting out information a week or so before a hurricane comes, letting everybody know what they should be doing. So the more groups we have in this database, the better we will be. One of the lessons we learned from Sandy was that we need to have boots on the ground who know their areas. Anastasia Hanna is our Bronx Disaster Program Manager, or DPM. This is a position created as a direct result of the lessons learned of Sandy. We have a DPM in every borough who is from the borough. They are coordinating the boots on the ground response. They are the ones getting the food, the blankets, the medical assistance, the bulk supplies to the locations. How it works in a chain is that if we would have a hurricane come, you would contact me in community relations. Let's say you needed 1,000 blankets. I would run that up through our logistics team. They would get the blankets. I would work with you to find the location that it goes to. Once it's verified, those blankets get to Anastasia, and Anastasia gets them to where you said they go. She is the boots on the ground, so you may never see Anastasia, but you will work directly with me. But Anastasia is, again, our boots on the ground, and we have those people in every borough. While Anastasia is in Louisiana for another week, our Manhattan DPM is covering both boroughs. And it's a kind of redundant system with our DPMs. They rotate all around occasionally, but Anastasia is our Bronx DPM. So, shifting to response now. If we get into response, the four main humanitarian assistance that the Red Cross provides includes sheltering. Now, sheltering during a fire, if a fire occurs, is 2 to 3 days in a hotel. As we saw during Sandy, people are displaced for longer periods of time. We work in conjunction with the Office of Emergency Management, sorry I threw the O in there, with Emergency Management on the sheltering system. Under the city's Coastal Storm Plan, EM is the lead agency for sheltering, and the American Red Cross provides logistics support. We will provide the cots and blankets. We will provide staff to work in those shelters. But the decision to determine what shelters open, when, is done by the Office of Emergency Management. And I did it again. The other assistance that we provide is feeding, and that is bulk distribution of food using local vendors. We will set up mobile kitchens where we can. We will also use our emergency response vehicles to do feeding through either mobile routes, through hard-hit areas where it's very similar to an ice cream truck. We go up and down the blocks on the loudspeakers, letting everyone know we have food. We stop, we wait till people come out, and then we move on. Or we have fixed sites where we might work with a community group or a church to say, a lot of people are coming to my church. How many people are coming? About 1,000 a day. We will drop over 1,500 meals at that church for them to give out, and we will continue continue doing that until the church says there's no one coming anymore. During Sandy, we gave out over 6 million meals in the entire time of our response here in New York City. The other service that we provide is counseling and referrals. A lot of that is our mental health support. We have chaplains, we have imams, we have rabbis, we have all leaders of different faiths who are available to people to comfort them spiritually. And we also have both retired and active psychologists and psychiatrists who will sit with clients because, as I say to people, I was just at the Sixth Alarm Fire in Staten Island last week, and people were amazed at how many people from the Red Cross quickly came and helped them. And the way I say to people is, that fire is just as bad as if you've lost your house in a hurricane, a flood, or a tornado. You've had your own hurricane. To you, you've lost everything, and having someone that they can speak to who's professionally trained to help them get through that situation is a true benefit to them, especially, unfortunately, if there has been a fatality involved. The final thing that we focus on is bulk relief supplies, and that is the giving out of paper goods, coolers, cleanup materials like garbage bags, toiletries like deodorant, razors, soap, face cloth, things that might be contaminated or people don't have access to those. We have cleanup kits, which are shovels, rakes, brooms, cleaners, cleansers. We give all of that out for free in bulk. We gave out over 10 million of those during Sandy. Our Sandy response, I keep referencing Sandy, actually ran from October 29th, which was the night she made landfall, through January 1st of 2013. So throughout that time, we were active. We also had over 1,500 volunteers from around the country who came to our aid here, including a team of volunteers who I met who came from Anchorage, Alaska. We have pre-positioned shelter supplies throughout New York City, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley in stationary storage containers, or what we call Connex boxes. I'm on slide number 9. If you look at the bottom photo, you should see gray boxes with a red cross on it. That's what a Connex box looks like. If you want to get a better picture of it, look at one of the ships in New York City Harbor. You see those containers? That's what we have. And we have those positioned throughout New York City, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley. They contain cots, blankets, toiletries, and additional materials for about 1,000 people. And we will open those when the need arises. All of them were depleted during Sandy, obviously, because of the response. They have obviously since been refilled. And we will use those not only to support affected areas, but they can also be used to support any nearby shelters. We also have relief supplies in movable trailers around the city in the lower Hudson Valley. These are your semi-trucks like you see going in and out of Hunts Point. We have those stationed around the city at places such as Aqueduct Racetrack, Belmont Racetrack, and throughout the lower Hudson Valley. And the idea behind those trucks is that we have contracts with commercial drivers who will bring hitches. They will hitch up to those trailers. So, for example, if we find out that a section of the Bronx has been completely destroyed or damaged in a hurricane, let's just say, for example, that Yankee Stadium is being used as a primary drop-off point for the National Guard and FEMA, we will roll those trucks to that site. What we don't want to create is a redundant site where people have to go here for this and here for that and there for that, and they're going all over the place. And what happens is, and we found this during Sandy, is that people know of this site here, they don't know about this site here, so they're missing out on services. So we will coordinate with all of you on where we can have these, what we call hubs of relief, where we can bring our supplies. So now I'm going to get into the time frame of the American Red Cross, assuming that a storm is coming. We begin our time frame at 120 hours. We're on slide 10. We'll be communicating with the New York City Emergency Management, as well as all of you, to let you know what we're doing. We're identifying our internal resources on what we will need. We are recruiting new volunteers, and we are ramping up our volunteer corps. We are coordinating with our national headquarters in Washington, D.C., and we are confirming all of the contacts with community groups and elected officials to make sure that we have everything. Twitter handles, Facebook, emails, cell phones, as many points of contact as we possibly can have. At 96 hours, we are really monitoring the storm. We're maintaining our contact with government partners. I'm on slide 11. I'm going to take a break. Hey, here we go. Thank you. Okay. We are monitoring the path of the storm. We're maintaining contact with all of you in government and community. And we'll continue our coordination and outreach to vendors and response partners across the nation. We'll be looking to use local vendors as well because we're going to need food very quickly. At 72 hours out, we're reconfirming our vendor capacity. How many meals are we ready to roll out as soon as we get the green light that it's clear for our people to go out? We're communicating with EM on possible sheltering needs. Are they opening shelters? If so, where? So we know how many staff we may need to assign to shelters. If shelters are opening, we're going to reallocate some of our supplies to support those shelters as they open. 48 hours, all of our staff is deployed to their designated areas. Now, one of the things that I learned during Sandy is that it is extremely critical for me and my staff to be out there in the field. So as we track the storm as it moves and we see the areas most likely to be impacted, the goal is to have somebody from our community relations department stationed in the Bronx. So for example, I may reach out to the Borough President's office and ask if it's possible for a staff member to be based out of Borough Hall. That way we have boots on the ground that you can contact with. We'll probably be interacting, and it also allows them to be mobile, that once the all clear goes, they can go out into the communities, they can go to your offices, they can get first-hand information that they can feed back to our headquarters in Manhattan about what services need to go out. Our emergency operations center that we have in our Manhattan headquarters is now fully activated at 48 hours, and we're continuing coordination. You will be inundated with emails and calls from me and my staff, just making sure that if anything has changed in the last couple of hours, both in what we are doing or anything that you are hearing. 24 hours is more likely what we call 0 hour. That is when it is dangerous to be outside. Our personnel will not be out at 0 hour, regardless of what happens. That's why we tell people that if an evacuation order is given by the city, it will be a day like today where there's blue skies. It'll be 2 or 3 days before landfall. When the skies are gray, it's too late. Please, we tell people, get out when the evacuation order is given. So now we talk about post-landfall. We'll assume our hurricane came through and our hurricane is gone. Our field units are immediately going out to do what we call damage assessment. Now, we can quickly look on TV and see what the news is carrying, but that's not going to tell us the whole story. What I'm looking for, what we're looking for, are the pockets of areas that are really devastated, and we go by a worst-case scenario first and back up. So if you are on the coast and you've lost your house and there's tremendous flooding and people are using rowboats to get out of their houses, and another neighborhood nearby has just lost power, that neighborhood's going to have to sit and wait a while, because the priority are the people that have no houses, nowhere to get out. We've got to work with those people first, and we work back that way. We're collaborating with our response partners to share the information, and we are beginning the distribution of the relief services that I mentioned earlier. We dispatch our mental health counselors to the communities to begin helping people, and we are again in constant communication. You hear me beating that kind of dead horse. Constant communication with all of you in the community boards, all of you in the elected official offices, to get information. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm seeing. And working together to get supplies out to the community. And the recovery plans are actually already beginning to form at that point. So even while we're in the midst of a response, we are going to assume long-term recovery is going to be needed for some residents. I'll shift a little bit now into recovery. To be effective in recovery is not the Red Cross's job by itself. It takes everyone. It takes government, it takes the Red Cross, it takes nonprofits, it takes community groups, and most important, it takes the actual individuals. Even though they have been impacted by disaster, they will determine the course of their own recovery. The more they delay, the longer their recovery will be. And that's why the Red Cross will work with everyone, agencies, organizations, and community groups, to come up with solid recovery plans based on the needs of the population in those areas. And it can be different, such as in the Rockaways, there was a lot of need for rebuilding of homes. In other areas, rebuilding was not a necessity. Other needs were there. Red Cross will work in collaboration with all of these groups and all of the community leaders to begin recovery plans. Recovery, again, is to build that gap, as you see at the bottom there, and to help people recover as quickly as possible. Red Cross will always provide in recovery the 4 things that you see there. Community recovery strategy will try to give you the best of our expertise in helping communities recover by working with COADs, community organizations active in disaster, long-term recovery groups, or LTRGs, helping to build those up. Some communities that may never have gone through anything like this don't know how to do that right off the bat. Some communities, during Rockaway, Staten Island, Coney Island, who experienced Sandy, have unfortunately kind of become experts in this through no choice of their own. We do casework and recovery planning. We had over 50 caseworkers at the American Red Cross that clients, residents could call our 1-877 Red Cross line, and we would work with them to connect them to all of the federal, state, local programs and services that were available to them to begin their recovery. Hooking them up with organizations that were offering funding, hooking them up with organizations that were offering free rebuilds, anything that they needed. And we do that in every disaster, and that's primarily what most of the volunteers in Louisiana are doing right now. Direct client assistance is another way for saying financial assistance. The Red Cross will never hand out cash. We will never hand out gift cards. We have to be accountable for every dollar given to us by the donors to the American Red Cross. So when we give out financial assistance, it is in the form of registering someone, giving them a debit card with a preset amount on it. And during Sandy, many organizations were giving out gift cards of $1,000 for Home Depot. The Red Cross does not do that because we don't know what it is you're going to use it for. And if all of you were donors to the American Red Cross and said, hey, I want to know how my money was used, I can't give you an answer. I can tell you I gave a gift card to John Smith, but I don't know what he used it for. If we have a debit card, we can specifically say we gave the debit cards in this area for hotels. We gave it for food. We gave it for whatever they may need. It's a lot more accountability on our part, plus we are federally audited. And we will be also giving out preparedness information for people in their recovery. If resources allow, meaning that we have raised money through, as we did with Sandy, and it is more money than we need in the actual response, we will look to use that funding in other creative ways. Additional direct client assistance. So let's say you got a debit card from the Red Cross for your immediate hotel and food, but you also need additional money because you need a tarp to put where your windows were. You may need to repair your roofing. If we have the additional funding, that might be another service that we'll provide to you by just adding more money to the debit card. We'll provide partner and interagency support. The case management platform we used for our computers was actually the same platform that we shared with many other nonprofits and agencies, so that it was one collaborative program. Because if one person's using this program and we're using another and they don't talk, then information is not being shared correctly, and that's when clients fall through the cracks and don't get the services that they need. And then you have the community preparedness and resiliency building. And you see in that bottom photo there, Red Cross volunteers going out and physically doing the work of rebuilding homes and helping people. And we did that during Sandy, and we potentially have the capability of doing that again if the need arises. So now, to me, is the most important part, working together now. How do we all in this room and everyone watching on TV work together? The first thing I'm going to say is we want to host those preparedness presentations with all of you. We want to bring the pillowcase and the CPC program to the Bronx. The more times we're in the Bronx, the better off the Bronx will be. We want to share the contact information. I have my business cards. I handed some of them out before the meeting, and we'll do that again now. But if you have my business card, you can always email me. We want to provide contact information. We want you to provide the contact information for community groups and faith-based organizations, as I said earlier. The middle dot you see there is identifying potential sites. We are looking for sites in the Bronx to pre-position emergency supplies, supply distribution sites, possibly places we can use to bring mobile kitchens in, and staging areas where we can stage and bring our volunteers together, get them outfitted, and get them out. Staging area is an area where we might say, if everybody here was a volunteer for the Red Cross, we're going to meet here at the DA's office at 9 o'clock in the morning. Everybody meets. Everyone here is going that way, everyone here is going that way. That's what we mean by a staging area. It's an area where everybody can get together, but it's also a staging area where we can potentially bring supplies in bulk and then get them into smaller vehicles and get them out into the community. Another important thing, and each of those things has different criteria. So I'm going to get that criteria from our Disaster Services Department, and I'll push that out to everybody. And if you have a site that you think fits the bill, we'd be happy to explore that area. The critical thing, too, urging people to learn their shelter location and how to get there. Now is the time to have that information when there is nothing happening. When the skies are gray, when there's a threat that a hurricane might hit, everybody hits the panic mode. I have to tell you, last September when Hurricane Joaquin almost came to New York, the level of tension in many of the community groups and elected officials I met was very visible because the memories of Sandy come back to mind. Luckily, Joaquin did not hit. But the number one question I was being asked, and this was potentially at one point almost 4 days before landfall, was, where is the nearest shelter for my group? That's not the time to know it. Now is the time to know it. You can go to EM's website, you can go online and put your address in. There's multiple ways. So what I would stress to everyone in this room is please get that information out to everyone in your districts about knowing where their shelter is and how to get there. Especially if roads are going to be cramped. How do you get there if you have to take public transportation? Some people might say, I'm going to go to my shelter, I know I drive there. What if you can't drive? How would you get there if you have to take public transportation? And again, now is the time to find that information. And also to promote the need for people to have supplies now in place before a storm happens. On our website, we have checklists for various disasters, hurricanes, floods, power outages, thunderstorms, and it gives you tips. It's a checklist you can print out. We have them in several different languages that we can distribute. You can print them out. You can have them in your offices to give out, and it gives people a little bit of a head start on what they should be doing now before a major emergency occurs. And there you have my contact information, as well as Denise Blois, who works with me in community relations, and Desiree Reiner, who is our chief external affairs officer, who was supposed to be here today. She's basically my boss. But those are the 3 points of contact. We will make this presentation available to everyone electronically after this. But that concludes my presentation, and I just wanted to thank everyone again for having us here this morning, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. I think you've given us the most comprehensive we've heard thus far.
Thank you. And if I may add one point, what I've shown you today is the, I'll say, best case scenario when a hurricane occurs. These storms are as unpredictable as the Yankees, okay? And I'm a Met fan, so, hey, it's even worse. But we will alter this timeline and what we are doing based on where we see the storm is heading, what track it's going on. So this is primarily what will happen, but there may be changes depending upon the nature of the storm and what it may bring. So I just want to put that out there. Sorry.
Okay. I have 2 questions, and one is, how do you reach out to block and tenant associations? Because it seems that that's an area that the community boards may be able to help you with.
Primarily, our outreach is done through emails. It's done through phone calls. We have a database in community relations of about 1,900 community and faith-based groups around New York City. The Bronx database, I'm going to say, is about 800 or 900 contacts, which to me is not enough. So if anyone has contacts with community groups, I'm looking for emails, addresses, the name, and a contact name that I can add to the database. We are happy to do this presentation at any community meetings, civic associations, churches. We're happy. The more information we can get this out about what is expected of the Red Cross, because what I'm hoping to get out of this as well is now you know what we will do, but you also know what we don't do. So if you have a need in your district that we don't meet, I might be able to help you point there, but I don't want you to think, oh, well, Red Cross can do that.
Yeah. Also, the pillowcase, do you distribute those every year, at the start of school year, or how is that done?
The pillowcases are part of the presentation. In order to get the pillowcase, you have to have us come in and do the hour-long presentation, which the schools in the Bronx did. We put together, for example, I can't remember the school, but we put together a team of 10 Red Cross trained pillowcase presenters. We came into the school and we did the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in one day through all of the volunteers, myself included. I actually enjoyed doing the program. We reached 600 kids in one afternoon.
Wow.
And it's only about 45 minutes to an hour long. And every kid gets the workbook and every kid gets a pillowcase.
Okay. Dan?
On that project, how do you work it with the school? Is it done like from 10 to 1? Is it 10 to 2? Like how do you, what are the details of it? Like that program you did in the Bronx school?
We worked with the principal directly to determine what time frame they wanted us to come in. So for that school, I think we started our presentations at 9:30. So we did 9:30 to 10:30, 10:30 to 11 every hour. But because we had multiple presenters, we had presenters in different classrooms. So we were actually, say, from 10:30 to 11:30, we were doing 3 classrooms at the same time.
Okay. And how many schools are you looking to get into?
As many as possible. My goal this year is 6,000, but since we actually, I'm proud to say through my team, we led the nation in the number of pillowcases being given out, which was great because it was our first year doing it. So I've been unofficially told by National that if we could reach 10,000, that would be great. So the more schools I can get, the better.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Tanya.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Well, two things. Well, you might have asked that. Not all of the schools in the Bronx have done that training, right?
No, not all
Okay.
of them, no.
Okay. And then the other question is, in terms of getting to the evacuation site, what happens with people that are either homebound or disabled, or how is that handled?
Emergency management is the lead on that, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you want to.
No, so we are.
Can you use the mic? You
Hi,
can sit
I'm-
at the table.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jo Karina, and I'm from New York City Emergency Management. So we learned a lot during Sandy, and one of the things that we learned is that not all the schools at the time were accessible. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to partner up not only with the schools, but also different organizations in order for us to open the shelter. I was here on June 1st, and we gave a presentation about hurricane evacuation zones and the different shelters that we have. All shelters are accessible, and we work with different communities to make sure that everybody's getting the help that they need when it comes to people with disability in this case. So one of the things that we're doing right now, we have, it's called DAFN. It's a different program that came out after Sandy, and what we're doing with that is we're reaching out to different communities that are vulnerable, especially the disabled community, to make sure that they're getting the need, but also for us to understand what their needs are. And we're working very closely with them to provide them all the needs that they have, and all the needs that they require. And one of the things that we have learned by working with different groups is that, how can we make the shelters more accessible, or how can we provide more information to them? So we have a network that we have created through different groups, and we provide information just like Red Cross does prior emergency, not only for hurricane, but during big incidents in the city of New York. One of the things that I want to mention, since you mentioned that before, we're getting ready right now to email to all the elected officials citywide and all the community boards citywide information about hurricane to your offices. So you're going to be receiving that hopefully by the end of September. And in that, you're going to have like a flyer that I also brought here on June 1st that's going to tell you all about evacuation center. But remember, these evacuation centers are only open once we know there's going to be a potential threat to New York City due to a hurricane, because we have different type of shelters that we open up depending on the emergency.
Thank you. But my question specifically is, thank you so much for that. Learning about how, you're raising awareness about how to make the shelters accessible and all of that. But my question is specifically for people that are homebound, that are stuck in their homes, whether it's a senior or whether it's someone who is disabled that just can't get out of their house. What happens with these people? Is there someone that goes and gets them out and brings them to the shelters? How are those people?
So we do, as a part of the hurricane plan that we have, the city has, our job is also to connect with different agencies that work with, with seniors and people that, the hospital, greater hospitals in New York. And what we do is we work with them, and they already know these people, who they are. And what we do is we implement different plans that we have working with them to provide the services that they need, whether it's to be mobilized out or to be provided assistance, depending. Because as we know, during Sandy, the hurricane evacuation zone were changed, and now we included more areas. So one of the part is how we educate those people before hurricane. So what we tell them is, like, if you do live in evacuation zone, let's have a plan A and plan B. Usually what we tell people, and this is something that we mentioned in our presentation June 1st, plan A is you should be able to, live out of a hurricane evacuation zone, right? If you know a friend, if you have someone that you can stay with outside of the evacuation zone, that should be your plan A. Well, unfortunately, we do know cases of people that do not have anybody. So what we do is we work through these organizations, we work through different agencies that have this information to, implement the plan that will help us out prepare those people as well. So they're not left out. We learned a lot through Sandy, and what we've done is we have increased the outreach for those people as well. working through different other organizations like that, and then many other different city agencies that have information about these people
So
that
identify.
have been affected.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And please understand that, as I mentioned before, when we talk about the local fires on the sheet that was here, please don't feel that you only need to reach out to me when a major disaster occurs. If a fire occurs in your district and you want to know information about what the Red Cross services that were provided, you can always contact me, and I can give you information. What I'm not allowed to share, just so you're aware, are the names of clients. We do have a national privacy policy, nor can I share what hotels the individuals may be in, but I can tell you how many families we may be assisting, what form of assistance they received. So don't just think it's the major disasters. You can call me for those smaller fires that occur that may not make the news. And then the last thing that I just want to impart on everybody is that many of us here will be extremely busy should a hurricane hit our city. One of the things that I stress on everyone is make sure that before you dive into your business of helping others when a hurricane occurs or a major disaster, that you have taken care of your own home and your own family. It is very hard to focus on helping others if you're worried about your house, you're worried about your loved ones. What we learned at the American Red Cross, and it's a new plan that we have in place, is that we will cycle off beginning 120 hours before landfall, staff at a time to either work from home or have a day off. They won't lose a time off, but it's intended for them to go home and get their house ready, get their apartment ready, make sure that their loved ones are taken care of so they have peace of mind before returning to work. Fortunately, I live in Staten Island. I was able to do that, work from home before Sandy struck, and then I actually spent a week at the office sleeping. We have showers, just so you know. But I did work out of my office, but during that week, I knew my family was okay because I had the time to prepare. So many of us will be spending countless hours helping people in need. Make sure that your own family, your own property is taken care of so that you have that peace of mind and can better focus on helping the people who are also in need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Yes, John.
Hi, good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
The question is, how can we get some of our board members or people from the community involved in becoming Red Cross volunteers?
I'm glad you asked. It is a very simple process. You go to our website. There is a form online that you fill out with your information. Within 48 hours, someone will contact you about your application. They'll want to learn more about your interests. Not everyone wants to be a disaster responder. Someone maybe want to be a CPR instructor. They will listen to what your interests are. They'll bring you in for a brief orientation, and they'll also conduct a background check. When all of that has passed, we'll give you your ID, and you are now a volunteer. You are given access to what we call Volunteer Connection, which allows you to take trainings, sign up for shifts, or do the things that you want to do that interest you. Not everyone has a time commitment to go out to a fire 6 to 9 times a day, but you might say, listen, I want to be a shelter worker, so if something happens, then you will be given a list of all the courses that you can take. Many of them are done online, so you can do it at your own pace. But you are now an active volunteer with us, and we'll always be looking to find ways to get you involved. Many of our volunteers right now are taking additional training because they want to go to Louisiana, they want to go to California, because they want to help others. The feeling being that many of these volunteers came here to help us when Sandy struck, and now it's our time to pay back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is very good. Are there any other questions, comments? No? I want to thank you for coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is an update on the Zika virus. We have Ricky Wong, who is the Director of Community Affairs, and Mei-Ling Vieira, who's the Community Liaison for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Got it. Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Ricky Wong, Director of Community Affairs at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I wanted to thank the Bronx Borough President's Office for inviting us to come here and speak today to give an update on the Zika virus. I'm going to just kind of give a quick overview about Zika virus, and then I'll talk about some of the efforts that we've done through the past mosquito season. Just for everybody's awareness, mosquito season officially began in New York City April 1st, and generally it runs its course through the end of October, depending if it continues to be warm, and we've had warm days in November. We'll extend that season as well too, and then we'll have to monitor the mosquito activity that's kind of going on in New York City. So some of the key facts here, and this is what's going to kind of drive our presentation today, is that again, most people that get sick from Zika virus generally get it from a mosquito bite. It's not from any type of mosquito. There is a very specific mosquito that's been implicated in causing the outbreak in Latin America and the Caribbean as well too, and we'll give some details about that. Zika can also spread, but very rarely, through sexual contact and blood contact as well too. It's not spread through casual contact, so if somebody here in this room had Zika and they coughed or they sneezed, you won't get Zika virus that way. Most people who get sick generally do not have any symptoms whatsoever, and that's generally very concerning for us. Those who do get sick, usually the symptoms are very, very mild. Since Zika causes birth defects, that's been our greatest concern, so we've been giving a lot of guidance and echoing what the CDC has been sharing with us as well too on Zika and pregnancy. And then the last thing is, obviously to date there's no vaccine and there's no direct treatment for Zika virus. You can treat the symptoms, but there's no direct treatment or cure for Zika. So speaking about mosquitoes, the mosquito on our left here is the Aedes aegypti. This is the mosquito that's been identified as the chief cause of the outbreak in Latin America and the Caribbean. We do not have this mosquito here in New York City, and that's great news. In the 15 years that we've done mosquito control for West Nile virus, we've collected millions of samples of mosquitoes, and we've never collected one single specimen of Aedes aegypti. On the right is Aedes albopictus, very close cousin, and now we do have that mosquito here in New York City, but only in limited parts of the city. Some parts of the eastern Bronx, northern parts of Queens, northern part of Manhattan, and then pretty much all of Staten Island has Aedes albopictus. In laboratory conditions, Aedes albopictus has been known to be able to carry Zika virus, but whether it can actually effectively transmit it and actually cause the disease, that's still being researched and remains to be seen. But obviously, we've taken precautionary measures and kind of addressing that with along with our West Nile kind of protocol. So these are the affected areas where a Zika outbreak is happening. Obviously in South America, Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean as well too. The CDC terms it as sustained local transmission. And what's not highlighted here is Florida, because there is not actually sustained local transmission. There is local transmission going on there, but it's not sustained. There's been a limited number of cases. And speaking of Florida, obviously in Miami, and also now in another county as well too, there have been several local transmission cases. The CDC obviously has extended their travel warnings to those parts of Florida as well too, and we echo those travel warnings, especially for pregnant women. And again, we'll talk to the specifics about that as well too. So symptoms, again, 80% of people who get infected do not get sick or display symptoms whatsoever. So if I had a room of 100 people and all 100 people were bitten by an infected mosquito, 80 of those people would not display any symptoms whatsoever. The remaining 20 who would have these symptoms, generally fever, rash, conjunctivitis, which is red eyes, and joint pain, they would have these symptoms. Usually the symptoms are very, very mild, onsets anywhere from 2 to 12 days. Those symptoms are so mild that the vast majority of people do not even need hospitalization whatsoever. So that's generally why it hasn't been really researched and looked into. Zika virus originated and was actually found and discovered in the late 1940s in Africa, Ugandan rainforest of Zika. That's where it gets its name from. But again, because it never caused any fatalities, it was never really fully researched until it made its way to South America, specifically Brazil, which is ground zero for Zika, and it started causing birth defects. And that's when it became, basically a public health and world health, concern for everyone as well too. Again, most people who get it, they recover on their own. It can be mistaken for other mosquito-borne viruses such as dengue or chikungunya. It even has some similar symptoms to malaria as well too, so there's some misdiagnosis as well. What I can tell folks now is that we have almost nearly 500 travel-related cases here in New York City, which means folks that are residents here in New York traveled into a Zika-affected country, got bitten, infected, came back here to the United States, started, displaying symptoms, and then, were diagnosed here. Out of those 500, I would say the vast majority of them are actually from the Bronx, as Bronx residents. I think it's about 180 that are Bronx residents, and this information is on our website. You're welcome to come and visit our website. You actually see the demographic breakdown. The travel history for the vast majority, the top 3 countries that they visited, not the countries of origin now, but the countries that they said that they traveled to were the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. Those are the top 3 countries that they had indicated that they had traveled to where they potentially were exposed. So I'm going to hand the presentation off now to Mei Ling, our Bronx Community Board Liaison, which I know everybody's familiar with, and she'll handle the rest of the presentations, but we can answer questions afterwards as well, too.
Good morning. So we move on to sexual contact and Zika, and it's really important that we note that now we know that both males and females can transmit and spread Zika one to the other. So it's really important that we understand that barriers are necessary, condom use or other types of barriers when having sex. So male condoms, female condoms, dental dams, and also using birth control while traveling. So if the female is using birth control, then she should continue to do so before and after traveling. We want to be very clear that females, there is now a timeline that we're a little bit more certain about, that in order to prevent pregnancy after traveling and returning home, it's about 8 weeks that we're advising that you continue to use barriers. Again, vaginal, anal, and dental dams. For the male that tests positive for Zika or has symptoms, we're asking that they continue to use prevention when having vaginal, anal sex for at least 6 months after returning from a Zika-affected area. In terms of a male who does not have symptoms and does not test positive, we're asking them to continue to use barriers for about 8 weeks. We continue to have and place an emphasis on pregnant women and women who are expecting to become pregnant who travel to Zika-affected areas. Again, we're advising females not to travel to these countries if they can prevent it, especially if they're trying to become pregnant or to conceive, or if they are pregnant. If it's possible to delay travel, if it's not possible, to delay travel, they should consult their physician prior to their traveling to ensure that they use insect repellent. And yes, insect repellent is safe for pregnant women. And so while the woman is pregnant, we're again advising that they don't have unprotected sex. They should have a conversation with their partner so that they can discuss abstinence, possibly. If abstinence is not something that they want to engage in, then they should definitely always use barriers when engaging in sexual relations. If the person has already traveled to an affected area and or has had unprotected sex with someone who has been infected, they should contact their physician so that they can discuss Zika testing, especially if they're symptomatic. As Ricky mentioned, so someone who's having the body aches, the fever, and definitely the red eyes, the conjunctivitis. So health experts recommend waiting before trying to conceive, having sexual relations, but for very specific guidance, we're advising that you visit our website. So it's nyc.gov/health/Zika, and there's a wealth of information on our website. So we mentioned birth defects. Microcephaly specifically is what we're discussing, and it's a birth defect where the baby is born, the infant is born with a smaller head, hence has developmental and functional delays. This, in general, we find microcephaly prior to Zika as a genetic abnormality. Infections can also cause microcephaly in someone who's not been stung, and also with blood flow difficulty while the fetus is in the mother. So it's not only associated with Zika. Blood donations are also something that we come across. Although rare, it is possible to transmit Zika through a blood donation. So we're advising that folks who travel to other countries wait at least 4 weeks after returning to donate blood. If you already donated blood within 4 weeks of returning from a Zika-affected area and have symptoms, so again, rash, conjunctivitis, body aches, then we're advising that you call the facility where you donated blood and let them know that you are now symptomatic. And then lastly, in terms of blood, we're asking that you wait 4 weeks after returning to wait 4 weeks after the last unprotected sexual contact with the person who was infected within 3 months of their last sexual contact. So testing, most people don't need to get tested for Zika even if they travel to an affected area, because if they're not symptomatic, then usually we don't really have any concerns. Testing is really important for pregnant women, especially those who spent time in the Zika-affected areas or who have had unprotected sex with someone who might have Zika. For all of you who are at community board meetings, we started presenting on this back in February. And so you all saw this presentation. I went to every community board. We're continuing to spread the same message, where if someone is going to travel and needs to travel, we're advising that they take the necessary travel precautions, which are to wear or use insect repellents. If you are staying in a location where air conditioning is not available, that you use mosquito nets over your bed, and you also spray them with insect repellent, that you wear long sleeve shirts, long pants during the day, because this specific mosquito is very active during the day, unlike our typical normal or New York mosquitoes that become more active at dusk. Understanding that it's also really important in New York City and in other places to get rid of standing water. So if you have standing water, it's really important that you report it to 311, and so that we can, or address it with the person, remove the standing water so that the mosquitoes don't get to grow. The CDC recommends that travelers returning to New York City from Zika-affected places take steps to prevent mosquito bites for at least 3 weeks, even if they don't feel sick, to avoid spreading Zika to our local mosquitoes. So that's also something that's really important to us. In terms of the standing water, as I mentioned, stopping mosquitoes in New York City, it's really important that we know that Aedes albopictus can breed in very small amounts of water. So it's extremely important that we remove water from tires, flower pots, buckets, pet bowls that sometimes we leave outside, fountains, that the water is not standing. So if it's in motion, it's different, but if it's standing water, then we should remove it. If it's in a location where you don't have access to it, or you can't speak to someone who can remove it, again, we advise that you call 311. Homeowners will be served with a notice of violation from the city for standing water if it's reported to 311. So again, as Ricky mentioned, the mosquito season is from April 1st to the end of October if the weather doesn't get colder. Sure.
So I wanted to give an update on our mosquito work locally, because that's where we've kind of had very strong infrastructure based on the work that we've done previously with West Nile virus. And I'm actually happy to report that we actually don't have any human cases of West Nile virus in New York City. This time last year, we already had 3 cases, so we've been doing fairly well. As far as the standing water complaints, we've obviously, sent messaging out, and we've run a media campaign about, standing water at properties, and how folks can file complaints about either their neighbors or somewhere that they see standing water. This time last year, we received maybe about 800 to 1,000 complaints. Already this season, we've already had 5,000 complaints on standing water. So the messaging is definitely getting out there. So basically, we've set additional traps, more than we normally put out there to not only capture the Culex type mosquito, which causes West Nile virus, but we also put additional traps out for the Aedes type mosquitoes as well too. We've been treating catch basins, and that's part of our normal procedures, but we've doubled the treatment efforts as well too. We've been applying larvicides. I'm sure the community boards have gotten notices where you have wetlands and marshlands, and we've been applying that as a control measure to mitigate mosquitoes. When necessary, we've gone out and actually sprayed neighborhoods to kill adult mosquitoes as well too. And we just continue to our investigations on standing water complaints as we kind of move throughout the season. We're coming to the end of the season, starting to cool down a little bit. We're hoping that trend kind of continues as well too. But I gave a handout here in blue. This actually gives the most updated information of kind of like as what we've done as far as money spent, manpower that we've kind of mobilized at the health department, how many patients we've tested. Now, I mentioned before, we're nearly 500, positive travel-related cases, but out of that 500, we tested nearly 7,000 people. And again, I want to stress, testing is not, it's not done by the health department. It's actually done at your local doctor. So if a pregnant woman or a woman who thinks she's pregnant or planning to become pregnant comes back, is symptomatic, or if it's a man coming back thinking that they're sick, they generally go see their doctor, OBGYN, and they would initiate testing through that. What we do is we coordinate the collection of the specimen, whether it's a urine sample or a blood sample, and we get it to our public health lab, or we send it up to the health labs upstate New York at the New York State Health Department, or we send the sample down to the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, to be tested as well too. We've done numerous community presentations throughout the 5 boroughs, over 150 of them. We continue to run our public awareness campaign. Now we've kind of refocused away from mosquito control to now travel and pregnancy more so, because there's still concerns. Obviously, we know folks are very, they have obligations. It's very easy for us here in New York City to travel to the Caribbean and Latin America. It's a 2-3 hour flight depending on where you're going. You either have family commitments, business commitments. In the beginning of this activation, we were seeing a lot more people going down there for leisure, for vacation, but now obviously we're seeing more and more people that have those obligations there, and they can't, cancel their trips. If they can't cancel the trips, they take the precautionary measures that we make the recommendations here as well too. So the last slide we have here before we kind of go into questions is that our resources. You can always check our website. We have a dedicated Zika website that we put together to let folks know what's the latest going on in New York City. One thing I want to kind of highlight for everybody is that we actually launched very recently a mosquito map, and it's an interactive map on our website. You can actually click by neighborhood to see what's going on in your neighborhood as far as the number of mosquitoes we've trapped, if we've done any larviciding or mosquito spraying as well too. You can follow us on Twitter. We're very active on social media, and we push a lot of information out on social media as well too. We also recommend you check the CDC's website for updated information, and also the Pan American Health Organization, which is the Latin American arm for the World Health Organization. They have up-to-date information. So thank you very much for everybody. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do have one question, and that happens to be about, first of all, have we had any cases here in the Bronx?
No local transmission. What we have
only through transmission.
Only through travel-related cases, and in the Bronx you have nearly 200 travel-related cases in the Bronx.
Okay.
So they're Bronx residents who traveled to Zika-affected countries, came back, to the United States and started displaying symptoms and were diagnosed here.
And how long does the water have to be standing? My concern is when fire hydrants are open because of a heat wave and that water is left, what happens then?
So generally,
because you can't hold somebody, a homeowner, responsible for stagnant water that they didn't create.
Right. We generally investigate standing water complaints on private property. If somebody opened a fire hydrant and it's spraying out into the public street, and that pool of water happens to stay there more than several days, and it comes to us as a standing water complaint, we would notify both DEP and also DOT as well too, because obviously DEP, because the water was coming out of the hydrant, hydrant, DOT because it's their street that they need to mitigate it from. If it happens to be on Parks property, we would notify the Parks Department. But if it's on private property, whether commercial or residential, and we see it there, there's no warning process, and violations immediately issued to the property owners, and they have to mitigate that right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy. Mr. Hill?
How close are we to a vaccination of Zika and possibly treatment options?
There's several companies, both domestic and abroad, that are researching and developing vaccines. Part of the issue is funding. Some of the companies depend on government funding, either at the federal, state, or local levels for it. So, I wouldn't say it's slow moving, but it's a process. Other companies, they're privately held, and they, depends on their kind of financial interest in it whatsoever. But obviously, we have large numbers of countries affected by Zika, so it depends on how quickly they want to do it. They haven't. I don't even think they've gone to the portion where they've actually developed something where they can even move into human trials yet. So it's still in development.
It's going to be a while before we.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
Okay. Patricia?
We've been getting DOH and also to DEP when necessary. I just wanted to know, what is the process, because the last one we sent it's on a street, and I just want to know the turnaround time for the inspection, and what is the process? What do you actually do?
If it's on a public street, we wouldn't be, we would still probably go and inspect to see, but if we see it there, we don't do control measures as far as removing standing water. That's not part of our process. And if it's on a public street, we would notify DOT and ask them to mitigate it. That's what the process is for a public street.
DOT, not DEP?
Well, because again, the infrastructure of it staying on the street, it would be then. We would notify DEP as well too, but the street as itself is overseen by DOT, so we would have to notify them. They would mitigate it. No part of our process, either on on private property or any of our inspection process on standing water, involves the removal of standing water from anyone's property whatsoever. What we do is inspect, and if we find the presence of it, we will issue a potential violation. If, depending on the situation, there's no access to it or something else, we may reevaluate it due to public health concerns for possible larvicide treatment, and where we actually would introduce larvicide. But if it's on a public street, depending on, if they're able to get rid of it as far as removing it, but also DEP has to be involved because the water would potentially be moved into the catch basin that's nearby. And if it's not draining properly, then obviously that's where DEP would be involved as well too.
So just to understand, once you do the inspection on the public street, you then do the referral to DOT?
DOT and DEP.
Okay. Anthony, I'll get there.
Okay. Yes, Tony Vitaliano, Chairman, Board 11. One of the questions you answered, I believe you said that an infected person, if bitten by a local mosquito, could pass it on to that mosquito?
That's the potential for transmission.
It is. Okay, we have 186 cases in the Bronx reported, right?
Travel-related.
Yes, travel-related. As you know, I think you know, a majority of our residents in the Bronx are roots from Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. Now, we got 186 reported. I'm guessing that there were a lot of people walking around that possibly have this virus, this Zika virus. Okay. Now, I hear in the radio every morning about the spraying. I hear Queens, I hear Staten Island, and Brooklyn. What I don't hear is the Bronx. Now, in Board 11, Board 12, Board 10, we have Pelham Bay Park, we have the creeks, and the Hudson River Parkway, which are areas that can breed this insect, the mosquito, okay? How come, unless you people are not telling us, how come the Bronx is never mentioned?
Well, so obviously in those areas where you have wetlands and marshlands, we've done treatments as far as larviciding is concerned, where we actually drop, material into the water to prevent the mosquitoes from hatching. And we've doubled those efforts this season versus previous seasons as well, too. The spraying to kill adult mosquitoes, that's a very complex matrix because, one, we're introducing a pesticide into the environment. Two, in order to be able for us to justify introducing a pesticide into the environment, we have to, one, see a large presence of mosquitoes, either Aedes type, which potentially can transmit Zika, or the West Nile virus type, the Culex type, with the confirmed presence of a disease in that mosquito. If we haven't met that threshold, we cannot justify spraying. That's the reason for it.
So you're telling me in Staten Island and Queens, you justify it, but the Bronx you don't?
Well, in Staten Island and Queens, we found positive pools of mosquitoes with the presence of West Nile virus. We did not find that in the Bronx.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you do me a favor? Do the Bronx a favor? Could you communicate this out to the people in the Bronx? Because I'm getting a lot of questions. How come the Bronx is not sprayed?
Yeah, I believe we actually did a spraying in the Bronx.
August 4th, I believe. I think it was August 4th. Right?
So referring to Pelham, we've actually gone to Pelham 4 times this year. As Ricky mentioned, we've doubled our efforts. Additionally, 2 weeks ago, we just had a spraying in just about every zip code in the borough. And so I've communicated that information to all elected officials as well as community boards. So the information does go to your community board. Tony, if you'd like, I'll take your personal email, and I will contact you whenever it happens in your board.
The reason why I hear the radio and the people who complain to me, they're right. Why don't we get this out to the people through the airwaves, maybe?
We issue a press release.
We do issue a press release.
We contact all the elected officials.
Well, I'm talking about the radio.
Well, we can't control media,
Right.
but we do issue a press release. In addition to the press release, like I said, we email everyone within the community boards and all of the elected officials that are in the affected area. And at times, because some of the areas border community boards, we'll email both community boards to ensure that everyone's getting the information.
Okay, all right. So the press releases, so then the board, I have to speak to my Jeremy to get the message out to all the members of the board. Okay.
You can also sign up for Notify NYC through NISM.
I was gonna say
pass that message out through them as well, too. Yeah.
You have to speak into the microphone.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. You can sign up for Notify NYC through NISM's website, and they actually send the message out. And if you're basically you can sign up for either a text message or email message, and then you can put in your zip code. If there's activity that's going on, whether it's larviciding or adulticiding, you will get a notification through that, and you generally give at least 24 hours notification prior to the event.
Okay. Now I'll give you my email address at the end of the meeting. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Every community board can do that. I know I've been emailing all of you to ask for your information because we're doing more proactive notifications to elected officials and community board. We really appreciate it. And I'm sorry I had to mention this. We're having our conference, our quarterly conference call with each community board, which Borough-based community conference call. That's what we're having. And I know the Bronx is scheduled for the 15th, I believe, of September. So if you haven't received an email and you haven't accepted the invitation, please do so. It's very important that you connect with us. I know Marisol already accepted on behalf of the borough president, and I know some of the board have not. So if you haven't done so, please do so. This is a great way for you to know what's going on in your borough.
In fact, I think I got an email from you about, a conference call. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
But
Okay.
thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
I wanted to thank Mei Ling and Ricky for all of the constant communications, because I check my email pretty frequently, and they're sharp, they're on it, especially Mei Ling. If I send her an email in regards to some specific rodent complaint or standing water in somebody's backyard, they're very responsive. Check your emails as frequently as possible and sign up for every newsletter, mailing that they have. Sometimes you may not see it on the news, but they send the emails out, and the emails are very comprehensive. Sometimes you may not be able to understand everything in the email, but you know that the information is getting out there, and if people ask for it, you can forward them the email because it's public information. So thank you guys so very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Tracy?
Thank you very much for your presentation. One question I have is, during the Ebola crisis, DOH did a great job in reaching out to the medical providers and having signage at their offices asking if people had traveled to like West Africa and the affected countries. Is the same thing happening with this? Is it posted in their waiting rooms, especially the OBGYNs and things like that? Is
Yes.
that going on?
So, yeah, anytime there's a potential outbreak or some type of public health emergency, one of the first things that we do is that we issue what we call a health alert that goes out to all providers, so local doctors' offices, clinics, hospitals, and everything like that. On top of that, we've actually developed posters and signage to give, specifically to what you said, to OBGYNs and family providers as well, too. We've even sent the posters to local pharmacies, so not only the big chains, but the small individual pharmacies, to have them kind of posted up one, recommending, about sexual contact, birth control, even, reconsidering travel as well too. So we have definitely gotten the messaging out on that. At the initial onset of the activation, we, obviously we were very concerned about travel, so we contacted all the major universities locally as well too, including CUNY, just to get messaging out to the staff and students. We were able to backpack messages home through the Department of Education, a letter from the commissioner and the chancellor, a joint letter for kids to bring home to the parents about, when spring break came up or something like that, to reconsider travel to those Zika affected areas and, postpone travel as well too. So we've definitely been putting a lot of messaging out regarding that.
Are there any other questions or comments? I want to thank you for also giving us a very thorough presentation today on this virus. At least we know we're safe.
Thank you.
Unless we go to one of the affected areas. Thank you so much. And with that, I have no announcement. Yes, I do. This Saturday, there are so many back-to-school, whatever you call them, back-to-school events. And the Borough President's back-to-school event will be at IS 82. It's on the back, at the back of the school. The school is located on E.L. Grant Highway, just south of Tremont Avenue. We'll be in the rear yard, which is on Harrison Avenue off Tremont. And it will run from 11 to 3 on Saturday, and we have all the usual stuff. So you can get the word out. You've gotten the flyers. Please get the word out. Okay? And thank you all for being here. This meeting is adjourned.